Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where people truly believe the universe is all about them and nobody matters. And in this episode, guys, OP tells a tale about the time a whole Karen family harasses her and destroys a hotel over a frickin' hot tub, guys. It's such a crazy story. I hope you enjoy the lineup today. Hit subscribe if you haven't, and as always, you can send or link your Reddit post to this email right here. Guys, don't shake your heads too hard today. So I work at a hotel, and on this day, a worker from a company who stays at our hotel comes down, and he wants a key card to check on his friend who didn't show up to work today. The guy won't answer calls and won't answer the door. My manager on the phone tells me to bring the key card myself and to come with. It's late. I'm 21 and the only worker there. So I knock on the door a few times, yelling, and after a minute I open the door. And I see a foot hanging off the side of the bed. The only other time I've seen a dead body is at a funeral. It's at this point his coworker and friend is trying to shake him awake. And when that doesn't work, he breaks down crying and calls his boss, and I call the cops. They say to do CPR, and I touch his skin and his body feels tight and cold. I tell them it's too late, and as a 21-year-old woman, I can't flip over this 300-pound man to do CPR anyways. So the cops get there, then the firefighters, then my manager and coworkers, and then the EMTs and the coroner. Now I'm not asked much. They mainly talk to my manager and the guy's friend. The police are here for hours, taking evidence. The man also has a dog in the room with him, and since the owner's dead, animal control shows up, and this is where Karen comes in. So the woman comes marching down the hall since we're making so much noise, and she says, "Why is animal control here? Did someone hurt a poor dog?" I tell her I don't know, as I'm not supposed to say anything. And she gets mad. She then says, "I have the right to know because I stay in this hotel. It's public information, so you need to tell me what's happening." I tell her I can't say, and my coworker backs me up. She then asked what their major is, and my coworker says, "I'm studying nursing." And with a snide remark, Karen says, "No, you're not. You don't look smart enough." It's at this point I put my best customer service voice on, and I was so polite, but she still demanded I give my name so she can report me to my manager and then my manager's manager. She then says this is the worst she's ever been treated at a hotel, simply because I said I can't share details. She then goes out to bother the cops and animal control herself. And she comes back saying, "So animal control told me more than you out of the kindness of their hearts," implying that I'm heartless. She then goes and finds my manager and pisses her off so much by complaining about compensation. So my manager says, "You know what, I'll give you your money back right now if you leave the hotel right now." And she agreed. So she comes up to me and I gave her her receipt. And she says, "How am I supposed to know I'll get my money back?" I tell her it says on the receipt. And she says, "That proves nothing. I want to know when your owner will be here next." I tell her I don't know, he's out of town. But Karen kept demanding. I had to drag my manager away from the grieving man and police to deal with Karen. Karen claims that she's got 1,000,000 degrees, that she's a professor, and her husband is yada yada yada. She then writes all of our names down, and she says she's gonna report us to the regional manager, which we don't have, about the horrendous stay she's having. She then walks out scoffing, howling about how rude we all are. I watch 6 people carry the body down the stairs in a bag, and wonder how some people can be so entitled. Yeah, so some people are all about themselves, guys, and this isn't the first post I've read where a Karen shows her heartless self. Like, what kind of person do you have to be to complain about the horrendous day you're having due to a person dying? And seriously, I feel like she's the type of person who would give this place a horrible review. Yeah, so I'm giving this place a 1-star review. You'll never believe it. I was having a great time until someone died during my stay. So I'm a 20-year-old male, and I work at a smallish hotel. It's right by an interstate leading you out of the small city I live in. And this alone makes us one of the busiest hotels in the area, which means we get all the crazies and entitled snobs from all over, much like this lady. Now, I wasn't physically here for the start of the story, but a woman and her husband staying here kept calling non-stop to complain about absolutely everything. They tried to get free stuff from us, and they've tried to get their room at a lower rate, which we can't do because they booked their room through enough points they accumulated. The morning I was supposed to come back from work, they came down to try to extend their stay for another day. They were told they can't through the front desk, and they would have to book an additional reservation to stay in their room. That's all fine with them, and we figure that's that. So 1 p.m. rolls around and housekeeping goes to clean the room, and they're still in there, and they argue with the head housekeeper. Spoiler alert, they did not book a new reservation. But Karen lied and said she made another reservation, and that it was an outrage that her room was barged into. Sometime after that, they leave for a while to go do whatever they came to town for. 10:15 p.m. comes and they come back in and complain that their keys don't work. Obviously. They were told they have to make another reservation again, and that we would let them inside their room to grab their stuff and sort stuff out really quick. So 11 p.m. rolls around and I come in, and this is where the fun starts. Now, I've done customer service for a while now, and I've always gotten a ton of great reviews from everywhere I've worked. I'm good at talking to customers, but I'm very blunt and upfront with everybody, and I never change how I act or talk. And normally, people love that about me because they know they're not getting bull crap answers. Meanwhile, Karens and Kens hate me because they can't get much over on me. So I get into work and I'm told about the room that has been a pain in the ass the whole time they're here, and I'm told about everything that happened above. Mind you, this is my first day back after 2 days off. So I call them at about 11:15 p.m. as they haven't come down yet. I call and get no answer, and then I get a call 2 minutes later asking why I called them. I basically say, "I'm Tim from the front desk. I called you to ask about the second reservation that you were supposed to make to stay in the room." And Karen responds, "Excuse me?" I then repeat myself and say, "I'm Tim from the front desk. I called to ask about the second reservation that you were..." She then interrupts me and says, "Did you seriously just wake me up to ask us about some reservation we made? And are you saying that we're not supposed to be in here? This is the worst hotel I've ever stayed at." So we go back and forth about them needing a reservation, and she hangs up on me, saying she'll talk about it in the morning. 5 or so minutes go by and the phone rings again, and at this point, both the second shifters are watching me to see what I'll do. I say, "Thank you for calling the hotel front desk. My name's Tim. How may I help you?" Her husband says, "Are you the one who woke us up over our reservation instead of waiting until the morning?" I tell him yes, and he says, "So what's going on? What's the issue down there?" I tell him, "Currently as it stands, there's no reservation in the computer for you guys. You're not supposed to be inside that room." He responds, "We asked the lady at the front desk this morning to add a day onto our stay." I tell him, "Since your stay was booked using points, we're not able to extend your stay. You'll have to book another reservation." He says, "This seriously couldn't wait until the morning? You had to wake us up for this?" Again, I say, "Yes, as I've said, you're not supposed to be inside the room. You haven't paid for the room." It's at this point I can hear Karen in the background, and she says, "What's he saying? Give me the phone." She then picks up the phone and says, "Hello?" I say, "Hi." Karen says, "What's your name?" I tell her Tim, and Karen says, "Tim what?" I respond, "I don't see any reason you need my last name." And Karen says, "Excuse me?" I tell her I gave you my first name, and that's all I'm required to give you. If you'd like to file a complaint about me, that's all you need. Karen says, "No, you need to give me your last name. You woke me up for something that could have been dealt with in the morning. I'm gonna call the cops on you." I tell her, Go ahead and call the cops. That's your right to do so." And Karen responds, "Are you threatening me?" I tell her I'm in no way, shape, or form threatening you. She then says, "Well, I'm calling the cops on you because you won't give me your name and you are being mean to me. And this is the worst hotel I've ever stayed at." I tell her that's fine, you do what you have to do. And Karen tells me you have to give me your last name and employee number so I can put in a complaint. Again, I tell her my name is more than enough for you to make a complaint. Karen then says, "No, because you told me you were the front desk manager." I tell her I never said I was a manager. "Then what's your position then?" I then tell her I'm the night auditor. And that's when I hear a click and she hung up. So I finished taking down all the info I need to book another room. This time at the actual rate it's supposed to be because F her and I don't want to hear from her again. So I went off to do my duties and came back to see my coworker on the phone talking to Karen. After he got off the phone, he told me that she literally just called to bitch. In the morning, my manager just let her sit there and complain, and then he sent her on her way after an hour of her complaining. So let me get this straight, Karen and her husband basically tried to score a free night, and when they were called out on it, they basically threw a tantrum and tried to flip it around and make the hotel employees the bad guys. Like, if that were me, I would have just called the police, guys, but you know me, I just want all Karens arrested. Okay, so this story took place when the pandemic was in full swing. I work at a hotel, and on this day, I was working a 3 to 11 shift. And it was a good night. Everybody was happy checking in, everybody was having fun, and I was enjoying work. But then this bitch came in with her family of a-hole Karens. So the woman came in at around 9:30 to 9:45 at night, and she had 2 rooms. I thought, cool, check-in time. She came in and asked where the restroom was, and I said to the left, and pointed towards the way of the restroom. She then turned around and walked towards my closed breakfast bar area. And at that I laughed, thinking it was funny, and it has been a long day of driving, so I said, nope, wrong way, follow my hand, it's this left. And her response would forever set the tone, I think. Karen says, wow, you're great at giving directions. Hearing that, I shrugged it off, and then I heard her say loudly to her teenage daughter she had one job, and she can't even show me to the bathroom. Hearing her say that, I thought, okay, cool, that's fine, whatever. I blew it off. They then come to check in finally, and Karen says, I want to pay cash for all the rooms. I tell her that's perfectly fine, but I have to have a credit card on file for incidentals. It'll authorize for the full amount, and it won't be released until tomorrow morning, if you pay cash. Karen then says, so you're double charging me. What kind of place is this? I tell her no, of course not. Cash is more than welcome, but I still have to have a card on file for incidentals. It'll show as pending, but it'll go away after checkout. It'll just be a hold that's released. Karen responds, oh okay, but cash is fine. I say to her, oh yeah, definitely. She then says, oh thank goodness. Well, run my cards and I'll get my husband for the cash. So it's at that point I check in both rooms. I say to Karen, alrighty then, if you can just fill out these registration cards for me, do you have 1 car or 2? She responds, I have 1. I tell her, awesome, that'll make it easier for you. Just cross out the car info on this one. And Karen says, I said I have 2 effing trucks. Did you not listen? You can't even give directions and you can't even listen. I respond, oh my bad ma'am, I'll just need the information on 2 trucks. She then says, is your pool and hot tub open? I tell her, oh, my pool is open, but my hot tub is closed due to COVID. And she says, wow, really? I called this morning up here and they said it was open. I respond, that's odd. My hot tub has been closed since the pandemic started, ma'am, but do you know who you talked to? Karen says, I talked to a woman and she said everything was open, but I guess it's not. So the only woman that was working today was my GM, and she's the one who put the hot tub out of order, so she wouldn't give any false information about the hot tub. Like, we have it drained and there's wire hanging out of the light sockets. She wouldn't tell people it's open. I tell Karen, well ma'am, I can see you booked through our reservation service, so they must have given you false information. I'm so sorry for the inconvenience of that. Karen says, whatever, now I might not stay here. I respond, if that's what you want. She then says, I just don't understand why somebody working here would say it's open when it's not. I say to her, again ma'am, I'm so sorry for the inconvenience and the false information given, but I really don't think you talked to the hotel She then interrupts and says, I did, and now I demand a night free for the inconvenience. I then respond saying, okay ma'am, it's just... At this point, the bitch's daughter chimes in and she says, all she's saying to you is that somebody here gave us the wrong information and we want compensation. Why are you so effing rude? Karen turns to her daughter and says, I know, right? I just wanted a hot tub, and here she is, dragging the conversation on about the hot tub. Now at this point, cue more yelling at me, and me taking a deep breath and slowly breathing in and out, while they scream about a hot tub. It's at this point I had enough, so I say, so I've decided you're not staying here at the hotel tonight. You've been nothing but rude to me, and now you're not allowed to be here, and I will not put up with you talking to me like this. And hearing me say that, Karen says, excuse me? Now, as I'm saying this next part, she and her daughter are yelling and screaming at me, and I repeat saying, "You're not staying here. I will check you out of the system with no charge because I'm removing you from the hotel. No charge will be on your card, and I will give you proof of no charges if you'd like." The Karen then says, "I'm staying here. Do you hear me?" I then tell her, "If you don't leave, you're now deemed as trespassing, so please leave my property." At that moment, 4 men walked in, and it's Karen's family. One asked why his wife was yelling at me, and she explained that I was kicking them out. Cue the idiot saying, "What? I'm staying here. I want your effing manager's numbers, and I want your name. I am staying here." So at this point, the entire family is yelling at me, and cussing and insulting me in every way they can. They even had their 3 little kids, all under 7, yelling at me. An entire family was yelling at me. And no, this did not help them at all. The yelling got so loud that I began to black out, because when you yell at me how they were yelling, my brain will check out completely. It'll block everything out. So I vaguely remember me handing them my manager's cards, somebody yelling that I threw it at them, and then the woman yelling, "Film her. Get this bitch fired." So I grabbed the registration cards from the desk, turning my back, and they continue yelling at me, and it triggers me to yell, "Get the F out of my hotel, right now." And fun fact, that didn't help. Now I'm not happy I yelled that, but I did. And hearing me say that, they laughed and said, "Oh, we got her, guys. We got it recorded, you dumb bitch. You are getting fired now." And they continued to yell and cuss at me. So I went to the back room and called the police because they weren't leaving at all. They stayed at my desk yelling and cussing at me as well as insulting me until the cops came. Dispatch couldn't hear me at all because the entire family was yelling at me. I then hear the Karen say, "Oh, come on, Karen. Come on out so I can expose your ass to the world, you dumb anorexic whore." And I'm thinking, cool, thanks. I'm aware I don't exactly have the best eating habits and I'm deemed underweight, but I really don't think that was necessary. Dispatch heard them and said, "I will add that to the report." So while on the phone with Dispatch, I heard them climbing over my desk, yelling, "Get her ass on camera. Keep filming. I want her fired." I then hear things being thrown, heard my table barrier we have up because of COVID being moved, and honestly, I have no idea how long I was hiding in the back room. The Karen family full of bullies finally left the hotel, and they sat outside on the bench out front. And I slowly peek around the corner to see if anybody was waiting for me. Nobody was there, but I seen stuff that was thrown all over, tables being moved completely, and a single AirPod was left behind. Dispatch asked if I was okay, and I said yeah, and told her what I found. Dispatch said the cops were on their way and to just lock the door. I told Dispatch that I needed them off the property and I'll provide whatever proof they want of no charges being put on their card, but they can't be here anymore at all. Dispatch said that's fine, so I get off the phone, finally, and I heard the yelling and cussing coming from the parking lot, and the cops had arrived, and Karen's family wasn't happy. So yeah, this is what happens when you harass people. The cops are called. The entire family then began yelling and cussing at me from outside of the building, and it went on for a while. When it finally stopped, I slowly came out of the back room and found one of the guys in the family pointing at an Apple AirPod box. So it was his. I let him inside, handed it to him, and he quickly ran outside the building because a cop escorted him. When the family member ran out of the building, the cop walked up and slowly said, "Did you yell 'get the F out' at them?" I said, "Yes, I did," and the cop asked, "What's your side of the story?" I told him everything, and that they were yelling and screaming at me to the point that I got overwhelmed, and my tipping point was when they said, "Film her ass." So I yelled, "Get the F out of my hotel." I then told him I admitted that doing that didn't help anything and that I fully understand and that I was sorry, but an entire family of like 10 people were screaming, yelling, and insulting me. He then nodded his head and said, "Yeah, it didn't help, but an entire family harassing you like that is overwhelming for anybody." And they definitely shouldn't have flipped out over a hot tub being closed during a pandemic. There were things both sides could have done differently. At that point, I ended up having the anxiety attack I was trying to fight off from the start. And I broke down crying, saying that I was sorry for calling them when none of this should have happened in the first place. So I was having an anxiety attack in my hotel, while the cop had to calm me down to try to stop it. He had me sit down and drink water until he came back inside. He then went outside and the entire family drove off in their giant-ass trucks. The cop and his other partner came in and she asked if I was okay because I guess he told her I was having a meltdown. It got to be 10:30 p.m. and I was sitting in the back room crying and having a meltdown until my coworker came to work. All of this over a hot tub during the pandemic. I told my GM everything and she said they better effing email me right now. She said the entire family isn't welcome back and they'll be on the DNR list at our sister's properties everywhere in the US, which is a lot. Holy crap, guys, that was crazy. And I feel so bad for OP for having to go through that. Like, what's worse than one Karen yelling at you is a whole freaking family of Karens yelling at you. And honestly, she handled it pretty well, to be honest. Like, I don't know how I would have reacted and how I would have dealt with it if a family of Karens were harassing me and pointing cameras at me while yelling at me. And I only wish that whole family was arrested, or at least charged with property damages, but no updates or nothing, guys. So I'm assuming nothing ever came of that. Like OP said, they just drove off, so I'm assuming they were just let go. But seriously, if you guys thought that was crazy, listen to this last post. Super entitled. So I'm a 31-year-old female, and I currently have a rare cancer called synovial sarcoma, and I've been undergoing chemotherapy since the beginning of January. I do 8 hours in the cancer center 5 days a week, every 3 weeks. Treatments are very taxing on my body, mostly nausea and extreme fatigue among other side effects. So my boyfriend, who's 24 years old, asked me the night before my next chemo cycle if I would meal prep his meals for him. I was hesitant and I didn't want to flat out say no because he's very sensitive and he starts arguments often. So I said it would depend on how I feel that day. He was insistent and kept asking if I could just try, and he wasn't taking no for an answer. I started to become agitated because, if I'm being honest, at this point, I just want to feel coddled and taken care of during this time in my life, not pushed to do chores. And it's not as if he was asking for a single meal. He wanted the entire week's worth of food made by me, after being in the hospital for 10 hours. For reference, he works early mornings and he gets out in the early afternoon. It's not as if he's so busy he can't do this himself. I think at this point, he still wants to be taken care of as well, which is understandable, but it's not as if I've never done anything for him. Also, I didn't straight out refuse to make his meals, I just offered to make them when I knew I would feel better. So at that, he blows up on me saying that acts of services is his love language, and that our relationship is one-sided. He then went on sending me angry texts, and I didn't argue back too much because I'm not much for arguing, and I didn't have it in me that day. He doesn't even do that much for me. He takes out my trash when I ask him to, and he gives me massages when my body hurts. And I do appreciate those things, and I've never complained, but am I the a-hole? Listen guys, I rarely say this, but OP needs to dump this useless idiot's ass. Like, she's 1,000,000% not the a-hole in this situation. And if her boyfriend can only think about himself when his girlfriend has frickin' cancer, hello, she needs to run. Like, my goodness, if I were in OP's boyfriend's shoes, she would not be lifting a frickin' finger. And this idiot's trying to make her slave away to make a full week's worth of meals for him. It sounds to me like he's an immature 24-year-old who needs to figure himself out. But guys, let me know what you think, and that, my friends, is r/EntitledPeople. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I hope you didn't shake your heads too much, and if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy, crazy stories. And if you missed yesterday's episode on the channel, it's an r/I-don't-work-here-lady, where a Karen attacks OP and her baby because they refuse to serve her and their customers. It's a wild one, so go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.